since I just started the live video, I will just do it from the printed copy I have,
Okay,
and maybe later I can give you a copy.
all right.
So,
It's not in here?
no,
Okay,
I mean the sutra discussion for the day.
okay.
We can just start from page 3 for the chanting part, I mean the precepts part. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. For the second time, I take refuge in the Buddha. For the second time, I take refuge in the Dhamma. For the second time, I take refuge in the Sangha. For the third time, I take refuge in the Buddha. For the third time, I take refuge in the Dhamma. For the third time, I take refuge in the Sangha. I undertake the precept to abstain from harming living beings. I undertake the precept to abstain from taking what is not given. I undertake the precept to abstain from sexual misconduct. I undertake the precept to abstain from false speech. I undertake the precept to abstain from intoxicating drinks and drugs that lead to heedlessness. That is it for the chanting part and taking 5 precepts. Welcome. I have not seen you two in any previous discussions, so this may be a little challenging for you.
Okay.
But let's be patient and see how you will the discussion. You are free to stop anywhere and ask questions. And she's also new to this discussion, although she has been coming to previous other discussions before. And this is a teaching from the Buddhist canon. The Buddha taught this 2500 years ago. And on Mondays, what we do here is to give people an opportunity to read one of the discourses and engage in a discussion. So let's see who that is. Yes, can you sit right here in front of the live streaming to make sure it's working?
Okay.
Is it working now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Because last time it recorded for 4 minutes and stopped, and nobody has the discussion now. Actually, I should also record it in my phone.
What do you have to do that when it stops? You have to
Just
press
let
some
me
button.
let me know so I can,
Okay.
I can see
Okay.
if I can fix that
Yeah.
myself. This is part 3 discussion of the greater series of questions and answers. This is a discussion between 2 of the great monks who lived at the time of the Buddha. One is famous for logical thinking, the other one is famous for wisdom. So now you can imagine when 2 minds like that meet, the questions they ask or discuss can be equally logical and wise. So we did this in 3. This is the 3rd part. We are trying to actually see how far we can go today. The entire discussion has about 37 parts. So usually we only do 10 parts each day. Um, we did 1 to 10 when we started this, and we did 10 to 20 last Monday, and today we are starting from 20th onward. Um, and usually I send an email to the group so they have this as an attachment in that email. Um, that's the only way monks can have attachments. Email attachments. um, so uh, that gives people an opportunity to read it and be familiar with what is lying ahead of the discussion. We did about, I don't know, about 15 of these discussions so far since we started, right?
Yeah.
So people who have been, like him, who has been coming since the beginning, has some understanding of what we are doing. But any beginner who is also joining later or once this is recorded, um, and you yourself can also go into the YouTube link and listen to it or watch it later. And I promised in the email that I will do a recap from the previous discussion because we lost it completely. When you found the name, the title as The Greater Series of Questions and Answers, before and answers, which also was a discussion between two people. In this, the questions are usually about higher states of mind. And we should keep in mind that these two monks are already enlightened monks, praised by the Buddha for their skills in different areas. I will just go to the very beginning, and one of the questions, like how it starts, is this monk, Venerable Kottita, that is his name, Kottita, and he approached to Venerable Sariputta, that is the wise monk. Hello, welcome. Kottita started asking questions, and the very first question he asked was, one who is unwise is said, with reference to what is this said? This is a simple question. Why someone is called an unwise person in Buddhist terminology? And in response, he got a simple answer. One does not wisely understand, he is called an unwise person. And then a counter question comes, what does he not understand? And in response, Venerable Sariputta says, they don't have the printout, and I can give you one when you leave. I don't have any printed, so I have to make printouts, or I can also send you the link to your emails later. For that question, as to what he does not understand, the answer is that he does not understand the Four Noble Truths taught in Buddhism. A very basic but profound teaching in Buddhism. And these truths are called noble because they are understood by noble people. Their minds are noble and pure and higher. And truths are also truths that cannot be surpassed, that these truths remain in the world. So what are these four? The suffering as a truth. that there is suffering in this world. Now, you didn't hear me saying life is suffering. That is a wrong way to interpret the teachings of the Buddha. He didn't teach anything like that. He said there is suffering. So, in other words, he indicated that there is also happiness in the world. And he wanted people to achieve the highest happiness. Happiness not from worldly pleasures, but from something beyond, surpassing, going beyond these worldly pleasures and attaining um, blissful states of the mind. So, the first truth, anyway, to make it short, is that suffering is a truth, the truth of suffering. And the second one is the origin of suffering. What causes suffering is this craving. As long as people have craving, craving as a truth, desire leading people to want things, and then they end up going through painful experiences because of wanting things. And then the first truth is suffering. First truth is about suffering. The second one is craving, the origin of suffering. The third one is the cessation, that you can end this suffering, and that is the truth. And the fourth one is that there is a path toward the cessation of suffering, and that path is called the Eightfold Path. Starting from right view, right thought, right intentions, right speech, and it progresses right action, making right effort, establishing right mindfulness, establishing right stillness, you are able to get to the final piece of Nibbana, freedom from bondage. So this has, all these are included in a discussion like this, but these two monks knew this, when Kotita asked the question, what one does not wisely understand, it is enough to say that he does not understand the Four Noble Truths. But for you, because some of you may not have that background, in a discussion like this, in our temple, we go into details and elaborate things for your knowledge. So I'm skipping many of the points in the beginning. In fact, 1 to 10 is recorded and is available for you to watch later. And in starting from section 10 is when we find questions like number 12 is a question of what is the purpose of wisdom? Now this looks like a simple question, and for that the answer is the purpose of wisdom, friend, is direct knowledge and full understanding, and purpose is also abandoning. Now these are like charged words. So with wisdom you can let things go, not hold things. Like when you are holding things, you suffer, and you think you can still the water in the cup by holding on to things. But I will hold this for 2 hours, and you know that I'm not a wise person just by seeing what I do. And in your mind, you want to tell me that put it down, so you will then be able to be free from holding and the pain that you have in your hand. So this is exactly the abandoning part. When you have wisdom that someone has told you that this is the way, or you have your own wisdom to let things go, you put it down. When you put it down, the water inside shakes little more. That is the nature when you think of letting something go. But then it settles, it stops. So you're not really holding it anymore, it's there. When you hold on to someone who is giving you pain in life, we try to continue explaining things, and we become so smart about words, and we analyze things, and we assume that other person understands all that. No, because things usually come from your mind, not from his or her mind. Only the things, he's able to listen to and understand, he will understand and remember. Other things will just be mere words. They just hit the wall and fall off. And even going into extents of being angry as you explain things will only create suffering for yourself. It's like holding on to charcoal and getting burnt. The only way you can be free from that is just throwing the charcoal and get yourself out of it. Only after the storm has passed that you can really understand what values are left, what items are left in your yard that you can use later. This is like in your mind, only after the anger storm has gone, you can see your true values and useful stuff. And using those, you can really approach that person again and tell the same things, but with love and care, and you will see the difference that person is now really listening to you, not shutting down. But these are just general, understanding of letting go and letting things be and finding peace in your mind, so you are able to win the moment, win your life. So any moment during these discussions, let's hope that we go into points like these, so we can also think of life in general, not just doctrinal aspects, right? As we discuss this. So I'm skipping a couple of numbers, sections here, and I will go to maybe let's go to number 18, which may be useful to those who were here last week also. The question that Venerable Kotita asked is, friend, what is the first jhana? Now this is, jhana means an attainment, and that is a meditative absorption, in simple words. So for that question, you get, the question that you yourself have in mind is, what is this? So the answer is quite secluded from sensual pleasures. What are the sensual pleasures? Seeing, you can see things and enjoy, get some pleasure. Hearing, you can hear things and get some pleasure. Smelling, tasting, physical sensations, and thinking, in all these ways you get pleasures. But you can seclude yourself from those through focusing maybe on your breathing. And a monk enters upon and abides in this state called the first jhana. When you have entered that state, you have joy. Instead of the word rapture, I'm using joy here, and pleasure, comfort, tranquility, born from seclusion. What seclusion? Seclusion from, you are now far away from seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, etc. When you are free from these sensory experiences, that is such a freedom, and you are able to enjoy some pleasures born from that freedom. Um, it's usually not ordinary that people don't think this way in life, that they always want to watch TV and see things and listen to music as they drive. So people in the world out there, they are very busy entertaining their sense doors. Now this state is the opposite of that. You detach from being involved with these sensory experiences, and you choose to allow some joy to arise and pleasure to arise, and that becomes a way of entertainment for a meditating person, for someone who is finding entertainment not from any instruments but from within, from inside. There is joy that comes. So then, when someone has entered this state, number 19, the question is how many factors he has. What factors does he experience? That's number 19. So he has thinking and examining thoughts. That what thoughts? Basically just a thought about what object of meditation you are in. Usually it is the in-breath and out-breath, and that is also something that you barely feel at this time, because you are also focused on joy, focused on bliss that you feel. So that awareness is basically thinking and examining thought, and that person therefore has joy and pleasure, and that mind's unification. Mind is collected, not scattered. And then number 20 is how many factors are abandoned in the first jhana? And the answer is, when a monk has entered upon the first jhana, sensual desire is abandoned. This is called a hindrance, something like an obstacle that hinders your path. Ill will is abandoned, that you are not angry at that. During that experience, you will get angry afterwards. When conditions are there for you to get angry, you get angry. Your anger is temporarily abandoned in this state. And sloth and torpor are abandoned, that you don't feel drowsy and sleepy. You are able to really stay alert, uplifted. And restlessness and remorse are abandoned. Remorse and restlessness. You don't feel restlessness. You don't feel like your mind is, running here and there. And doubt is abandoned. You don't doubt that this is what you are going to experience, because you are already experiencing these states. So you don't have any doubt that whether this works or this will not work. So in that person, when these things are abandoned, basically 5 hindrances are abandoned, and that person is able to stay with joy and pleasure and applied and sustained thought and a unified state of mind. So now we can really start the discussion for today. Number 21. The 5 faculties. So faculty um, is not just this like arts faculty, science faculty like in universities. This refers to eye faculty, seeing, ear faculty. Um, the Pali word for faculty is indriya. Uh, I think another English word comes to my mind, like um, we call organs in the body. Um, but when you count organs, you have more than 5. Um, so the main faculties in this discussion here refers to um, eye faculty, ear faculty, nose faculty, the tongue as a faculty, and the body as a faculty, and the mind as a faculty. These 6. The 5 basically includes the first 5, excluding the mind. And then in some discourses 6 faculties are discussed, in some only 5 are discussed, depends on the audience and what the Buddha was teaching. But as I think I told you in a previous discussion, that mind is not accepted as a faculty in the thinking of the secular world. When it comes to science, people don't look at mind as a thing or a measurable, visible, visual thing. So people talk about other things, but other faculties, not the mind. Anyway, an interesting question. Friend, these 5 faculties each have a separate field. Nana Visayani, separate field. Let's look at it in a different way. Like, I cannot hear. Can it? Can your eye hear? No, E by I. Not I. And separate domain. Nana Gocharani. That's a word for that in Pali. And do not experience each other's field and domain. The eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty. Now, of these 5 faculties, each having a separate field, a separate domain, not experiencing each other's field and domain, what is their resort? Patisaranam. On what do they depend on? Because they don't have a separate, they don't really do the job of the other faculty. What experiences their field? So what is the experiencer of their fields and domain? So when I first read this, I thought, this must be referring to the soul of a person, someone's self. That must be the question. But the answer is, in the last line, last 2 lines, they have mano, mind, as their resort. These 5 find mind as their resort. When there is mind, these 5 can sustain. If there is no mind, never mind. There's no way one can, survive without the thinking aspect and the mind aspect. That one has to have a mind involved. That's why the Buddha said, mind is the forerunner. Mind gives you thoughts, and you act on those thoughts using these 5 faculties. That is how things happen in the world. So mind experiences their fields and domains. Um, Mind is the experiencer. So can we say mind is the soul? No. Why?
Mind, it takes input from the other five senses.
Exactly. So that's a very nice way to put it. Like, so the mind then cannot survive um, if it is not fed by these five faculties. But um, when one has attained some deeper levels of meditation, mind needs something to hold on to. So mind, usually still, finds um, five faculty as a, backup plan, that it comes to these, one of these or all the five later, uh, or else when the mind has been freed from these five, it is freed from existing anywhere, that it disappears. Um, so there's no consciousness, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, no such consciousnesses are manifested. Um, when they do not manifest, mind also is, I would say, shrunk, and has no energy to survive, and it's like powdered and shattered and dissolved and disappeared. But this is not exactly true, because mind has such strong powers, as when you really cultivate this mind, you are able to do a lot of things, that you can even stay in some absorptions in mind like forever. That those states do not have any involvement with a physical body, but eluded mind, that when it has an illusion, that you can survive in a state like that. People who cultivate the mind that far go into depths of those levels and stay there. They don't know how to come out from these states until, not really until, they just stay there. I don't know how to go and rescue such. Well, like the two teachers that the Buddha met, they went into two different states. One went to the state of the attainment of nothingness. His understanding was that he could attain that kind of a state and remain there, so he is still there. And the other went into neither perception nor non-perception, and he is still there. If you have been in this discussion before, you understand a little bit of this, but let's not go into too much detail into those. Maybe later on, when if we have the time, we can discuss this. Number 22, friend, as to these five faculties, that is the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty, what do these five faculties stand in dependence on? So this is like a similar question. Friend, as to, like the previous one was asking, like what is their domain, and sorry, what is their resort, and kind of a question, and what experiences what is experience, what is the thing that experiences these things. And now in this question, what do these five faculties stand in dependence on? The answer is these five faculties stand in dependence on vitality. Um, the Pali term for this is ayu. Ayu is the Pali term vitality, and the Sinhala word they used is jivitindriya. Um, that someone has, a lifespan. When they are born, there is a lifespan for that person. He's going to, if he's did not meet an unfortunate early demise, a person can only live so long, 100 years, maybe 120 years maximum. I don't know if anyone in present days can live that far. We all have expiration dates, right? We will not live forever. Of course, people want to find a way to like put your soul into a chip and hide it somewhere and survive forever. But who knows? Even in Buddhist discourses, we find that there is one point in the future that our full lifespan will be just 10 years old. That is because people's greed, and they run after things, and there's endless desire to taste things and enjoy things. Um, Even nowadays, like cheese, like things are produced out of greediness. That too many cows are, tortured, and it's really a way how greediness leads the world, right? And this way, this affects to us finally, because people eat the pain of someone, not the pleasure, and somehow. Um, your lives, people get all kinds of diseases. It's not people cannot control it in some ways now, that you don't know where, it says happy cow's cheese, happy cow's milk, but the truth is it's not really happy cows. They are really suffering. That sometimes they are calves, the mother cow will never be able to see the calf separated and killed, and produce some kind of meat from it. But in Buddhism, these are your parents in previous lives. These could be some relatives of you in previous lives. So it's interconnected. So Buddhism encourages people not to kill, not to steal. This is like stealing and eating. And people understand these things, but it is too late. Their lifespan will be just 10 years old, and then they abandon these practices. Whoever is in that age will abandon the greedy practices. Then their lifespan, because their thoughts are pure, they protect everybody, they protect animals, and animals don't fear being around people, and the lifespan will continue to be 80,000 years. Once end up living 80, just imagine living 200 years, not just 100. Now this is about 80,000 years of lifespan. So this is how craving, when you are not really greedy of things, the world becomes something completely different. We need so many animal lovers to really rescue all these animals. I heard one time that a chicken in this country, if they are released, there are more. There is no field for them to, survive. There are so many chickens packed, that more than humans, in this country. So just imagine in the entire world, the suffering they go through. That's the thought that stopped me from eating meat and all all kinds of things. Well, I grew up vegan in my life, so my dad was a vegan, so it also helped. So I didn't develop the taste buds and craving for meat, so I could survive without these in my life. I feel so good when I only eat just vegetables and stuff. Um, these things have to be discussed in the world, how much suffering animals go through and how craving is the driving factor for these. Because every block you have Burger Kings and all kinds of kings inviting people to eat and eat and eat. Anyway, we went little. This is not what Sariputta and Kottita intended in their discussion. But they would not mind us discussing these things. So the question is like, these 5 faculties depend on vitality. Are you? So you need vitality for 5 faculties to survive. So then the counter question as to what does vitality stand in dependence on? For that, a simple answer, where is it? Number 20. Do we have it? Well, the vitality stands in dependence on heat. So heat is a thing that you don't really feel that much, but excuse me, that in a person's blood there is heat. If the blood is cold, which means the person is really not alive, dead, right? Blood becomes, this has to work for heat, the heat has to be there. And so vitality and heat. So another question comes. In the first, he said 5 faculties depend on vitality, and then vitality depends on heat. So vitality stands independent on heat. Ayu stands on Ushna. You understand this,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then heat so what does heat stands on? Then his answer is heat stands independent on vitality. So vitality stands on heat and heat stands on vitality. You see, this kind of answer comes. So Kottita asked another question. You just said that vitality stands independent on heat, and now you say that heat stands in dependence on vitality. How should the meaning of this be understood? In that case, friend, I shall give you a what's the simile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For some wise men, they understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Just as when an oil lamp is burning, I put that thing there because this part was going to come. This is a candle. When it is burning, its radiance is seen in dependence on its flame. If you turn off the lights, and you will see the radiance. So too, vitality stands in dependence on heat, and heat stands in dependence on vitality. They depend on each other. For heat, for flame, the simile says, when an oil lamp is burning, is radiance is seen. You can see a radiance. Depend if that depends on flame, and you can see a flame, and that flame depends on radiance. Um, really, the flame depends on many things. For something to burn and there is a flame, um, so there are many things burning. But here, flame and radiance, when you just focus on those two, there won't be any radiance if there is no light, right? But for when you have light, there is also radiance. So these two are, in a way, depending on each other, and there's no way one can separate the two. That's like heat. When you have heat in body, um, which means a person is alive. There's no heat, the person is dead. Um, so let's understand these in simple terms and not really put pressure in your minds trying to argue with these things. Nobody's going to win arguing on these matters. But I feel like this is somehow in modern day discussions, people would go into elements and all kinds of things when they discuss about light, and that this light depends on so many other things, not just radiance. Vital formations, friend. Number 23. Are vital formations states of feeling, or are vital formations one thing and states of feeling another? Vital formations, friend, are not states of feeling. If vital formations were states of feeling, then when a monk has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling, this is one of the highest attainments, Nirodha Samapatti, he would not be seen to emerge from it. So let's understand this slowly. So the question is, vital formations. Let's go to the Pali of this. Ayu Sankara. That's the Pali term for vital formations. So Ayu Sankara is a different way to say the desire to live, I would say, because that's something the Buddha abandoned when he attained his final, so when he passed away, he abandoned Ayu Sanskara, the desire to live, that he's not going to continue living. If he wished, he could, but there was no invitation came from the attendant monk, Ananda. He was fooled by the evil. He had no thought of inviting the Buddha to live an eon, which according to the tradition was a thing that the Buddha could have done. But at some point, 3 months before the passing away of the Buddha, he abandoned Ayu Sanskara, the vital formations, that he's not going to continue living in 3 months, he's going to end his existence. Let's put it that way. But the question here is, we are going to discuss this for about 9 more minutes, and we will stop there. Question here is, are these ayu sanskaras or vital formations, are they states of feeling? So, are they states of feeling? For that, the answer is they are not states of feeling, right?
Mm.
And then, are vital formations one thing and states of feeling another? So, for that, the answer is, if vital formations were states of feeling, so if they were feelings, then when a monk has entered upon, so imagine this monk is now really done cleansing his mind, and he's entering the cessation of perception and feeling. So when he which means he's going to almost controlled death like a state. I'm not sure if police will come and catch me for this kind of a discussion. I'm not encouraging anyone to really do this unless they have proper guidance. Like in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, in order to become a master, a teacher, you master, in some Tibetan traditions, you master on how you die. You experience it. Not that you die, but that person has the understanding that this is how one leaves this body, that it's frozen and something leaves the body. Let's put it in simple terms.
So body is there, the mind leaves the body?
Yeah. In simple ways.
Mm.
But if we go into details, that's not exactly how you would put it when you go into the actual experience. People feel fear when they leave the body, even in meditation. That's why if they feel like they don't feel the body, they shake a little bit to feel, if this part is there, if that part is gone. So that's because we cling to the experience within the body, that we want to feel it all the time. We don't feel it, we feel like we are dead. But when you have enough mindfulness, you can really feel how you really separate yourself from the body, and you can come back to it. These are controlled processes. I would only explain that far because I don't know that state myself. So when you try to explain something you don't know, you are going to give wrong information. And this is on YouTube, and so let's not go that far. This is just knowledge speaking, right? So if these were feelings, right? If vital formations, ayu sanskar, were feelings, cessation of feeling means he's not going to have any feelings afterwards, right? Logically, he would not be seen to emerge from it when a monk has ceased in his experience, when he has experienced the cessation of perception and feeling. Now, perception, the Pali term for perception is sanya. Feeling is vedana. So when this monk has developed that level, like this is a very deep level of mind, you have gone beyond 5 faculties and you are now dwelling in different perceptions, and you are now coming to a state of neither perception nor non-perception. You don't know whether there is a perception or non-perception, but you also let that go. In that, the mind has nothing to hold on to, so it ceases. If feelings also ceased, that this monk would not, if feelings well, feelings ceased, but those feelings that cease are not equal to vital formations, because the monk will live after this experience. Therefore, he will come back to life after this experience. You see, now you maybe get it. Even after attaining this state, because he has vital formations, and because that has not gone, he will come back to um, life. He will emerge from it. That's the simplest way to put it. If not, if he had ceased vital formations, he would not be seen to emerge. Like if he let go of vital formations, if he abandoned to live after this experience, he will not emerge from it. That will be it. Because vital formations are one thing and states of feeling another, when a monk has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling, he can be seen to emerge from this, right? So this monk is in a feelingless state, which doesn't mean he's dead. Because he is still alive, he will come back. That's how you understand this piece. Number 24, friend, when this body is bereft of how many states? The word bereft, give me a different word for this. This is not common. Viyoga is the Pali, like abandoned, I think. Like separated from how many states? Is it then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log, like a death state here? When this body is separated from how many states that you say he's dead? That's a different way to put it. Then the answer is when this body is separated from three states: vitality, ayu is not there, and heat, ushna is not there, and consciousness. This person is not conscious. It is then called a dead body, left lying senseless like a log. So these are the things that usually it's hard to determine whether when someone is brain dead, or you swim and you drown and you're unconscious, and people try to revive your body, giving you they call heart compressions, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to even the person may not breathe for maybe a couple of minutes or even longer. People struggle at that moment to determine whether the person is dead or is able to come back to life. So imagine a state like this comes in meditation, in mindfulness. Not that mindfulness leads you there, but you are coming to a state of experiencing a state away from body, almost like you are mindfully but dead, that you're not really feeling anything in your body, but you are aware completely. But that is an experience that, let's leave it for meditation practitioners who go to those levels. But here actually this is talking about a dead body. A dead body means it doesn't have ayu, vitality, it doesn't have any heat, it doesn't have consciousness, which means no pulse working, there's no movement happening in that body. Then it is left behind, and it's senseless like a piece of like wood that doesn't grow. So then he's approaching to ask a question like, what is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, kalang kato, completed his time, and Khata means done. Kalang is time, done his time. And a bhikkhu, a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling. When a monk, why this question comes? Because when someone attains this state of cessation of perception and feeling, an ordinary person would find that person and think that he is dead, because nothing moves in that person's body. Like that person in Perth who was taken to hospital by his wife, that she said, I'm just going to make tea, and the man said, okay, I will meditate for a couple of minutes. But he went straight into a state like this, and he didn't show up for tea. So the wife went and found that he is not moving, and nothing seems to happen. It seems like he's dead. So she called 911, and ambulance came and did all kinds of things to his body, and he didn't come out from it. So they took him to the hospital, and on their way they did heart compressions. He didn't hear any sounds, and siren sounds or anything. Fortunately, it happened to be an Indian doctor, and when he heard that he was meditating, he let him stay. Did not send him to the morgue. A usual thing that people do. So he emerged from his meditation, didn't know anything that happened, just walked home with wife. The problem is he was never allowed to meditate after that by his wife. I'm not going to do this ever again. That was the only problem he had after that. So, because that state is a state, like dead state, this question is asked, like, what is the difference between one who is dead and one who has and one who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling? That was 8:33, and with this we will, with this section we will stop the discussion. Friend, in the case of one who is dead, who has completed his time, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. What are the bodily formations? Kaya sankara, in-breath and out-breath. He's not breathing and breathing out. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided, which means thinking and examining thoughts. He's not, he doesn't have vitakka and vichara. And then his mental formations have ceased and subsided, which means perceptions and feelings and consciousness. These are mental formations. These have ceased and subsided. And moreover, his vitality, ayu, is exhausted. And his heat, usma, has been dissipated. And his faculties are fully broken up. No indriyas are working. He's not seeing, he's not hearing, etc. But then, in the case of a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling, his bodily formations have ceased, which means in-breath and out-breath. You don't see that person breathing. This is the meditating person, okay? His verbal formations have ceased, that he's not thinking and examining thoughts. And his mental formations have ceased and subsided. That means he doesn't have perceptions and feelings and consciousness in ordinary sense. But his vitality is not exhausted. He has ayu. His lifespan continues. He has karma to live. His heat has not been dissipated. You find body heat in this person. And his, well, I don't think an outsider may feel it, but a heat enough to sustain the body is there. and his faculties become exceptionally clear. His, when you see that kind of a person, this is why when um, people saw the Buddha after meditation, he had this radiance kind of a thing that they oftentimes when you have a Buddha statue in Sri Lanka, you see a halo. See, that's because of the meditation experience. Even with Jesus, I think Jesus, they put a halo because of his purity in mind, that people see a radiance coming from his faculties, the body. So if you see those, don't send that kind of a person to a morgue. This is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling. I think that's good enough for today. Thank you for coming. Any questions? Okay. So let's do the concluding part, just reading the Gatha, the verse we read on number 6 of this. You have it, the last one. Sabba papassa akaranam kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanam etang buddhana sasanam. The avoiding of evil, the doing of good, the purification of the mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Did this work?
It didn't, unfortunately.
3 people are watching. I'm not sure if it stopped or recorded anything. Are you sure you want to stop streaming?